it's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. What a great show and lineup we have for you today. I'm Dr. Pat, as many of you know. I want to say hi to our producers. Hello, Mr. Benny. How are
Hola,
you?
¿qué pasa?
Hey, yeah, like really cool, actually. Really doing pretty good with that. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you understood that.
I did understand it. Uh, I mean, it's like, okay, so a lot of people are noticing how things are blooming and popping out, right?
Oh yeah.
We just, once the sun comes out here, like if it like comes out for like a day, everything will like pop, but we're still
Mhm.
getting a little color here, right?
Have you gone to the University of Washington where they have the cherry blossom trees?
Yeah, right.
Oh man,
Oh my
it's so
gosh.
great
It's
up
like,
there.
what's going on over there,
Even
right?
me
It's
being,
beautiful.
even me being a coug, and I'm on the other side of the state with
I
my
was going to
school.
ask
I
So
you.
still
Cougs.
go there. Thank you, Jacob. He's got my back. I still visit the campus because it is so
Do
beautiful.
they let
And it's
you on that
beautiful.
campus? I'm just
Boy, they almost wanted to
curious.
kick me off so fast. I mean, I
Okay,
tell you.
that's good because you had your cougar shirt on, right? Didn't you have
No,
like your little
no. Why would I do that?
you
No. Of course I
going
did.
to like the UW with the cougar shirt? I have to tell you that that logo is that's just rocking.
Ours?
That Cougars logo, yeah,
Why, thank you, Pat.
yeah.
That
It
is the
is
most
so
sincere, most beautiful thing I've
it's
ever heard from you.
you
So
know,
great.
when it comes to sports, there are a lot of sports icons and sports logos and sports colors, but that logo is the spiritual logo, right?
Mhm.
You know that, right?
Of course.
You know, the whole design of it, the
Mhm.
whole cougar idea, but the whole design, the beautiful red crimson is it? The
Thank you.
colors are just gorgeous, but it is a highly spiritual vibration. So I don't understand with that spiritual vibration why you lose football games.
Oh, come on.
Wow.
Hold
Shots
on here.
fired. Whoa. You know, I have a button I could just turn you right off, right? I mean, wow, Pat. I'm impressed.
I mean, I'm thinking about a team like the team from Oregon called the Ducks. They
Who?
like win.
Who?
So the Ducks,
Yeah,
weren't
who?
they called the
I don't.
Ducks?
Yeah, I'm kidding, Pat. I know who they are.
So how is it Ducks win and Cougars lose? I
Oh.
just don't get it. And dogs, you can't even find them. Oh, I'm gonna get so many emails about this show. I
Here,
feel
I'll
like
help us out. There we go. Is that better?
oh my God. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Benny. Um, my guest is like, I got to get off this show. Yeah, no, she's like, what are these people talking about? But look, we got a great show. And, it's interesting. We're talking about symbols and icons because, we've done a series of shows recently because of the symbolism of things. And I was really struck by, a number of conversations we've been having lately. But I got to tell you what's up in the forefront right now. And it is anything to do with the goddess or goddess like energy. Now, you don't have to be a woman to appreciate this. And as a matter of fact, almost all of Hollywood blockbuster movies around all of this, except for recently, I will say, have been done by men. But now we're getting a different perspective. Why is it that Gal Gadot would like to play and is going to play Cleopatra? Why is that whole entourage in that production mostly women? What is it about this that we should know? That's what Kate is going to talk to us about today. Kate Osborne is joining me here today. And this is about restoration for so many. It's about resolution and it's about restoration. It's how do we claim, own, understand, and feel the energy of all of this. Now, if you're Kate, you have done it all. You have been in publishing. You have the experiences of all of that. You understand what it's like to be in the business world. You understand what it's like to represent people as a publicist. There's so many things that when you think about it and you think about what a journey is like, what is it that brings people forward to want to have a message like this, showing up in the world today? That's just one of the things we're going to talk about today, because this is her book. And I think Jacob's got pictures of it too. And this is about the goddess resolution. Think about what that means. What are we resolving? What is it that's going on? Kate, it's great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good
It's wonderful
morning.
to be here. even though I didn't really understand any of the sport stuff to start off with. But I get the whole cougar thing. But
well, it's interesting because we have, this is a campus city, so to speak. Seattle is, right? But we are so blessed in the Pacific Northwest by the beauty of spring. And that's really what we were talking about today. We were talking about what happens here. Now, if I were to turn my camera and you were to look out that window right over there, you'd see gray, gray, green, gray. And amongst all of that is a blossom, just things blossom. And so this is really about looking at harmony in so many ways. And that's what your book is about to me.
okay.
It's about looking at, harmony. Harmony is one of my favorite words. I got a lot of feedback a number of years ago when everybody was talking about balance. And I came out and said, it's going to be impossible to achieve balance the way you're defining it. I said, harmony is the go-to, right? You can't tell a woman who is so focused on creating or writing that she shouldn't spend 80% of her time writing her book, that's out of balance. But today, I wanted to talk with you about the power to create through goddess energy, because that's one of the things I get from your book. I'm so struck by that. How has that been calling to you? Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, I came to the book because I was working with Llewellyn on editing another book, and we were talking about different ideas. And I mainly do oracle decks, so divination decks. That's been kind of a mainstay. And I'd just done this dark goddess oracle deck, and we were talking about the various goddesses, and that's basically dealing with your shadow side. Yeah, so dark in the most nurturing sense of the word. And when we were talking about the idea, she just said to me, well, why don't you write a book about goddess energy and relating it to emotional, not stability is the wrong word, but basically being able to manage your emotions. That doesn't mean you have total control all the time. It just means that when things happen, you're able to manage that through the stories and the mythology and the ideas of the goddesses that have been in literature around the world since Dot, right? The first ever statue that was found was of a voluptuous woman. And so, we are all born of women, as I say right in the beginning of the book. Man and female are all born of a woman. So we hold that creative energy, that divine creative energy. And it's about expressing that through our emotions, but trying to do that in a healthy way.
Yeah. And I love that you're really looking at this from, and can I just put two words together, and I want you to comment on them, because there's so much that has come out about women and goddesses and that has to do with control. And I never got it. I never understood how women are so loved for their emotional ability and creative energy, right? Our emotional creative energy. We're so loved for it, right? And we're so hated for it. It's like you finally rise up in a corporate environment and you get that corporate job, and all of a sudden you're like way too emotional for this job, right?
Yeah.
But everything up to that point to really motivate to get to that place. Is it paradoxical? Is it paradoxical in that way, do you think?
Do you know what? I think if you're talking about the working environment, and my sort of most recent thing in the mainstream was, funnily enough, in radio. I worked on the advertising side of radio for one of the big radio corporations we have here in the UK. And you're absolutely right. All the way through, when you're sort of climbing the ladder a bit, it's like, oh yeah, you relate to people, your clients really well, and you get enthusiastic. But then when it comes to the boardroom, so to speak, and you start expressing yourself in that way, it's like, oh, time of the month, or too emotional, or whatever it might be. And I think that comes from fear. I think that comes from the people around you who are fearful of, maybe because they don't feel they can express themselves that way, or perhaps they've had past experiences of something negative happening if you allow somebody to express themselves. But the problems come when you don't allow people to express themselves in the main, right?
Yeah.
Control is, I think, at the root of all the problems we have in the world today.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it interesting we're talking about that? Last week, I had the opportunity to interview one of the youngest members of parliament from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And, you know, just listening to him and his conversation about, I mean, I was amazed that we were to find a little humor in the interview with him at some level, but I asked him a very important question. And we're also trying to have schedule a number of panels. I'm very interested in the women of the Ukraine, because I don't know if you've been watching them. They are goddess-like in so many ways. And yet, when I read your book, I could literally take pages out of your book to describe how rising up they are. And, you know, I tried to do my best to ask him about the women, but clearly women have been part of that, you know, that ecosystem of relationships since war, you know, 14 war. So they've been side by side. And yet it seems like we have so much more to do. Tell me about this, because is the more to do part of the goddess resolution? And I don't mean more for us women to do. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, so more in the sense of,
I don't want to do more. I'm like,
you're doing fine. You're doing plenty as it is. I've got teenage children. I don't want to be doing more either.
I don't want to do more.
Yeah, maybe it's not so much doing more, but listening more, being heard more. Stuff is happening anyway. Things are things are becoming more transparent. Industries are becoming more transparent, whether the people at the top of those industries like it or not. So I think we don't need to do as much as be ready to respond to what is going on.
You know, part of what I loved is the goddesses you picked out to talk about in the book.
Okay.
And the reason I really love them, I want to talk about a couple of them, especially in light of what you just said. Which one do I think is, this is going to be an odd question, because, you know, if you came to my house, I was telling somebody the other day, if you were to walk into my house and you were to take a look in my house and see the posters I have on the wall, you'd get a sense of what I align with or what I get energized by, right? But the goddesses that I have in my space don't necessarily represent the goddesses that people know. I want to come right out of the gate and talk with you about one of them that is used over and over and over again, even in mainstream crazy movies.
Yeah, okay. Right? I think I know who you're going to go for then.
Pandora.
It wasn't going to be Pandora.
I know. Yeah. Which one were you picking? Tell me which one you were picking.
I thought you were going to say Hekate, because she comes through in all the witchy films and
exactly. I'm
all
saving
that sort of stuff. Yeah,
I was going to say that.
Fair enough.
Okay,
but Pandora,
right. Yeah. I mean, there's even a crazy line in that movie Notting Hill with what is it, right?
Hugh Grant and
oh my gosh. But because of what we've done, we don't understand her, do we?
Well, at the end of the day, if you believe what the original writing, she was created, right? So she's not in the sense of how we are the result of the energy manifesting itself. Supposedly Pandora was a creation of a god to exact whatever he wanted to exact on another god. But the idea here is that she has temptation was the big thing with her, wasn't it? The curiosity of just thinking, I gotta see what's in the box, or the vase, whatever it was. And you know, I fall in that trap occasionally too, where I just think, I just want to know the end of the film or the end of the story beforehand.
Oh my gosh, were you like in my house last night?
Probably.
Okay. So a friend of mine told me to watch this series, right? And I had saved it. And I watched the first 4 episodes, and then I went to the last one.
Oh, what was it, Pat? What was it, though?
The cleaning lady, I think it's called.
Oh, don't know.
Benny, did I get that right? Can Benny or somebody look that up?
Sure, I can look it up. It's not ringing a bell for me.
Yeah,
cleaner.
It's a great series
Okay.
because it just talks about the many facets of who she is. She happens to be a cleaning woman, but that's
Yeah.
not where the story goes.
Yeah.
But isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I was like into like the, and I'm like, okay, I just want to know what happens at the end.
Yeah.
So I did like 4, and then I went to the end. Now I will tell you, I will not do that with. Yeah, thank you, Benny, the cleaning lady. I will not do that with killing Eve.
Oh no.
I will not do that with killing Eve because I want to talk about the energy of this, because in your book you talk about the gifts of the goddesses, and let's take a moment to go over this if we could, because that will explain to Benny, Jacob, and William why we're talking about this a little bit. Can we get down and dirty with some of the gifts here we're talking about?
Okay, first of all, I always find the word gift interesting, right? I have
do
German
too.
heritage, and in German, the word gift means poison. So you've got the two sides of things, like the double-edged sword, right?
The
That's what a
cursing
man
and the
has.
blessing, the blessing and the curse.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So again, it's about how you use stuff. It's all about the choices you make with what you have. So you can choose to do these things productively, or you can choose to cause a bit of chaos if you so do. But the gifts that women have on an emotional level are very powerful. Do you have children, Pat?
I don't have any children of my own, but I raised a child. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then even if you didn't have your
Like
own
it
children,
didn't,
whether
like
it's siblings
he didn't
or
like pop out of me, but
no, exactly. But you'll understand the
felt
bond
like
that
he
you
did
have.
though.
Yeah, you'll understand the bond you have, and sometimes so your gift could be compassion, could be understanding, and sometimes that can veer into something that's slightly unhealthy. Yeah, if you're over the top with something. So we're complicated creatures, I think, and we're powerful
Complicated.
creatures. Yeah.
Complicated. And, you know, in the context of this, right, is looking at, my mom used to say, I had 2 moms, both of them goddesses, different. My
Mhm.
stepmom had to be Athena or Athena, depends on
Mhm.
what you reference her as, Athena
Mhm.
or Athena. That had to be that. My birth mom had to be like, like Aphrodite. It was just all about love, right? You put those together, you really do get a warrior, right? But one of the things she used to say is you just have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You
Yeah.
have to know when to bring something out. Do we, in goddess energy, how do we learn that? Because those things are emotional, right? They're the integration of the mind and the heart and the emotional energy to get us to a point where we take action. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I don't even know if Helen of Troy, I mean, honestly, I don't even know who decided to put everybody in that wood structure. But the point is, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's hard to find the truth of anything. But think about the way we're looking at some of these goddess figures, Mary Magdalene, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How are we doing with integrating the mind and the heart?
How are we doing?
How the goddess is doing.
When you were asking me how we actually managed to do that as well, it
Yep.
just, I'm afraid it comes with experience. It comes with
Yeah.
living life, right?
Mhm.
There's only so much you can comprehend as a child. People can tell you as much as they like, but there's only so much you can understand and cope with as a child. And then you move into adolescence and so on. And so it's the life experience. Now, I don't know anybody who's reached my age, and I'm 51, who hasn't had some difficulties. I don't know if we can use profanities on here, but the S word happened to them in life by the time they've got to this age. And I think it's then either you learn from that and move forward, so it becomes an experience in your emotional body, but you've managed to deal with it, so actually it becomes a strength. Should you encounter a difficulty again later on, you deal with it in a different way than if you've never had that challenge before.
Yeah. I was reading the section of the book where you wrote in our emotions we trust, and you were referencing a great goddess of the underworld. Anytime I see the underworld, I'm all in. Okay, that's just like a weird thing with me. I'm not even sure where that comes from. I mean, I watched all the underworld movies, but the great goddess of the underworld, and I thought it was going to be a different goddess. But can we talk about how the great goddess of the underworld helps us or inherently guides us to trust these emotions?
Yeah, well, you probably will have come across a different one because I referenced New Zealand goddess, the
Yes, you did.
Pacific
I love
goddess,
that you did that.
because I grew up in New Zealand. My teenage years were spent in Wellington, bottom of the North Island. And I was very blessed at the time that in my school and so on, we had a marae on the school. So that's a meeting house, Maori meeting house. And I felt that there's also an Australian goddess in there too, but this New Zealand goddess of the underworld, her story is it's very contemporary when you hear about it. When she discovers that the father of her children is also her father. This is, even though this was written thousands of years ago and passed orally through the generations, what people have to contend with nowadays as well. It's the same sort of thing. And her first instinct was to run away, was to feel shame and guilt and to flee from where she was. And hence she ended up going to the underworld. But through her then, man tried to get back inside her in a way that he wasn't meant to. And so this is where death and rebirth came through that story. So yeah, that's, there are lots of, I think what comes across when you're dealing with goddess energy is that that you will find across the world lots of different goddesses that represent the underworld. Effectively, there's probably only a handful of goddesses, right? 6, 7 of them maybe, but depending where you live, depending the environment that you're in, they will be told in a different way. So you've got Hel, is also another goddess of the underworld in the Norse mythology. Yeah. And she lives in a cave, and and she's looking after the souls there, and it's cold and it's dank, and it's very different from Hine, who is in this lush part of the world in the Pacific. But I think I guess they're all showing that the underworld also is a real necessity, that we, in order to become who we need to be, we have to go through these things in life and know how to deal and cope with them. There's so many books around and so many teachings that are all about trying to avoid problems in life. Yep. So do this to avoid that, do this to avoid that, to kind of turn your face against something ever happening. But what does that teach our children? Because at some point they will face difficulties. At some point people will have to face trauma. And so the sooner you can learn to deal with that and deal with the emotions that brings up in you, because some people won't feel guilt and shame, they may feel anger and rage. And so it's about learning to deal with that when that boils up. Yeah. Particularly in women, I think the most difficult people I've had to deal with in life have been women, not men, because emotionally trying to read a woman can be quite, it's quite hard sometimes.
We just went through this here in the United States the other day, last week, actually.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because, I watched the same press conference my friend watched, and he was outraged. He was outraged by our Vice President, Kamala Harris, in a press conference, smiling when she said, "Our doors are open and welcome." Okay, so she's right. And I just thought from him, and I said, what really bothered you about that? What
triggered?
What was that? Were you not taking her seriously? She hadn't smiled up to that one statement and that one question that was asked of her. And I said, but what was that? What was that about that smile or that grin or whatever that expression was that set you off? And, he couldn't answer the question. And then, of course, for me, I read your book.
Did you?
One of the things I want to ask you, is the outline that you put in the book and how you express this outline in the book. I apologize for that phone.
That's okay.
I loved when I got the book and I was asked, do I want to interview you? Of course, I looked at the book, and then I looked at your approach to this. And that's what I want to talk about when we come back from break.
Okay.
I went through and I said, oh, she's not leaving out temptation. Okay, she is not leaving out put up or shut up. That is like my mom used to say that, but she used to cuss. Then, I think she's telling me to put on my boxing gloves over here in this section. And then she's inviting us to be born again, all through the eyes of some amazing goddesses. My question for you, Kate Osborne, when we come back, I don't know if you can write this book without this book changing you, without the writing of the book changing you. We're going to take a short break, but how do people find out about you before we go to break, if you don't mind?
No problem at all. They can visit my website, which is www.solarisltd.com. So it's solarisltd.com.
That's a fascinating word. We could do a whole show just on that, right?
I know.
When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the, I want to go through the book, and I want to just have you talk a little bit about the format of the book and how each chapter really takes people on a journey. And really what I got from it is it takes you on a journey of self-discovery, but it also hits a few nerves. At least it did for me. The shut up or put up one, that definitely got to me over the weekend. But when we come back, I want to talk about who emerged. Were you told by them to be included in the book? And how did you change? Who most spoke to you? Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. So great to have you join us. Look, this is the Goddess Resolution, restoring harmony, emotional well-being through spiritual connection. Kate Osborne joining me here today. She is the author, most amazing. And there's so much more you can find out about her. And this is really the Solaris Foundation. Is that the best place to go, Kate?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, solarisfoundation.com. It's SOLARUS. So y'all get that right there. The book available, I'd say everywhere, right?
Yep.
And I want to thank all of our friends at Llewellyn for bringing this to us. I was very happy when Llewellyn, sent the book forward, and I opened the book immediately, and that's what I want to talk with you about now.
Great.
Because I opened the book, and can you imagine? I've been doing this 20 years. Can you imagine how many books I've reviewed?
Yeah.
And I opened the book. First of all, the table of contents got me.
Okay.
I didn't even read the book.
Okay.
But I thought, wait a minute. This is not your regular book. This is about a life's journey. There are going to be lessons here, right? There are going to be lessons we need to read about and understand some of the history and the depth of it and the emotional parts of this. Because when I look at this, can I just for a moment, and then I want you to explain this because it's different. Here, chapter 1, the power to create. Chapter 2, the relationship ripple. Chapter 3, tackling temptation. Hello, who hasn't done that? But which goddess did it? Chapter 4, facing fallout, which we touched upon a bit. Chapter 5, shut up or put up. That's the one I read twice. Chapter 6, sitting in judgment. Chapter 7, becoming the fortress. Chapter 8, it's what my mom used to say to us girls. Girls, you have got to pick your battles. Chapter 9, death becomes you. And chapter 10, born again creators. And then there's more. But this is different. This is different. Did you mean to take us on a learning experience and transformative journey through this approach?
Yes, and I'm so glad you saw that. It was do you know what? I never thought the first book that I would write, because I've ghostwritten and things before, would be a self-help book. I always thought the first book I do would be like another Da Vinci Code, or definitely fiction, and I could go to all sorts of places. But when I sat down with it, and I sat down with these lists of goddesses, and I thought, well, who can I relate to which chapters? I actually just went through my life story to an extent.
Yeah. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it had to be something like that. But you went through your life story, which is a life story of so many women.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's no way I could have done this book at any other time, because you know, I've lost somebody. My first husband died when I was quite young, and he was quite young. I've had children who are now teenagers, and a second marriage to somebody who's older and wiser than myself most of the time. I've gotten to travel, and so that was really good, and do lots of different jobs, and then start my own business. So I don't think I could have come to this any earlier than now.
And I love that you did this, because and I've mentioned this before a couple times on the show. I have been doing this 20 years, on average 10 hours a week for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. Because I love it. And I started the network in 2009. So now, you know, we have a network, Transformation Network. But I've never written a book per se. Right. And I'm getting more publicists, like whether it's Kat or Manzanita or book agents, when are you going to write your book? When are you going to write your book? But I looked at the way you wrote this, and it kind of inspired me.
That's fantastic.
To be able to write a book the way that I want to write it, this way, right? And I want to ask you about this, because in each of these chapters, you bring a goddess to light. And what I mean to light is you bring a goddess to the forefront. Did any one chapter cause you serious angst to put on paper?
What headaches? Probably, like more than
headaches is good. That's a good.
Yeah,
Good.
I know. It's just sort of like, okay, well, first of all, the book itself, I first thought, well, maybe I should do something that addresses everybody, male and female. And by all means, lovely males out there, if you want to read the book, go ahead, because it will give you a nice insight into how, you know, women folk are kind of working and what they're dealing with. But I just had to zone in on what I knew, I suppose, and that was being a woman, and having gone through kind of like these phases, I guess. You know, it's not that these happen necessarily in that order and then that's it. Quite often I'm tackling temptation. Quite often I'm facing fallout. It's always a learning thing. But actually the whole thing unfolded pretty much in my head before my eyes. Now, you know, some people will say, do you get inspiration from, do you hear somebody telling you stuff or whatever it is? But it's like a film. That's how, when I'm writing, it's like I'm seeing a film and it's putting it down in that way. That's the way I work, I guess. So, but going back to when you say one particular chapter, there are a couple of things I do talk about that have happened in my life that were quite testing at the time. So I think it was making sure I wrote it with integrity.
Yeah.
And respecting the people that are involved, the energies that were involved, and actually the goddess, the stories, the original, trying to, I looked for the most authentic versions of these stories, because a lot have been butchered over the years to suit media, to suit a particular narrative. And I just wanted to go back to the most original versions I could find.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I was, I was excited to hear, and I think I mentioned this earlier, I was excited to hear Gal Gadot going to go ahead and do the revisit Cleopatra. And of course, Patty Jenkins was originally going to direct it, but she had to step away. She's gotten a couple of other projects. She's still involved. But Gal was talking about the fact that she wanted to represent Cleopatra from Cleopatra's perspective. What would it be like to see the journey of Cleopatra, which isn't sensationalized by, the sexism approach of what we looked at. Although, I mean, it did make a great Hollywood love story, right? With the actors.
Oh, absolutely.
And Liz, come on.
And that's what suited what was going on at the time, right? And people all bought into it. at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite different. You know, the goddesses aren't all beauties necessarily as we know them. Many, you can't go through the stuff you've gone through and come out looking radiant the whole time. And yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how they portray Cleopatra, I have to say.
I want to jump to one of the chapters in the book because I think this is going to this one. There were two chapters in the book that I really looked at, and I went back and I thought, wow, this has got to be one of this is one of the biggest chapters in the book, right? And I looked at it, but I found these two chapters and they're not next to each other in the book, and I think you do that on purpose. I think you separate them by sitting in judgment. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. Okay, there we go. But by the time I got to becoming the fortress, I almost wanted to cry.
Oh, okay.
Now,
tell me why.
Yeah, exactly. Because how often have we been invited to become that, to become powerful, to be revered for it? Right?
Seldom, probably.
Huh?
Probably seldom that you've actually been invited to do that.
But I had to go through the rest of the book to get here to appreciate this chapter. And that's why, and may I, okay, can I read something
Please.
from it? Okay,
Yep.
because I write in the book, so I definitely can't give this book away. Okay, we're gonna have to give a different book away.
Okay.
But when I got to this, I was like, damn, God, I'm making some very big decisions now that I don't want to be afraid to make them. I don't want to be afraid to make them. I want to trust, like you say previously. But you go on to say, becoming a fortress is not about locking yourself up, not about being emotionally impenetrable tower, but having the knowledge and the voice and the practical tools to defend your authentic self. I love that you quoted Jung here. That was a pleasant surprise for me. This is a quote of Jung that I'm so glad you put, and you say the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And then here's the line that got me. Cultivating the ability to be your true self for your thoughts, words, and deeds is like practically building yourself up brick by brick. It may require sacrifices, giving up on distractions. And you go on to talk about, for example, relationship, job. And I thought, oh my God, you're so right about that. See, if I walked away from what we're building, the network and our expansion now, I could walk out the door and I could walk away and have all of those other things. But that's not my calling. And you describe this in a way that answered my question when I get picked on, when I say, I don't believe in balance, right? How did you personally relate to this chapter? Because you can't write something like this without a personal relationship to this. I'm sorry. So I got to spend 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes of the show, you talking about that.
Oh, okay.
Am I right though? Right?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
It's a couple of things. I've had influence from martial arts and martial arts teachings, because becoming a fortress is actually a martial artist term in karate, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously there it is about being able to stand in your stance. Yeah. So being able to take whatever comes at you. Then I thought, well, how does it relate to if I was to become a fortress? And I thought of it, well, you know, there are, again, thinking of goddesses and mythology in the stories, the fortresses and the castles can either be depicted in a negative light or actually in a safe haven, in a sanctuary. So you're making yourself your safe haven, your sanctuary. It is not an easy thing to do, because first of all, you need to know who you are and what is it you want from life at that time. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, you know, as well, because if you've you are gonna make mistakes, but if you know I can cope with it, however I feel when I make the mistake, then it's never going to tear you down as much as it did the first time around. And so
Right.
your fortress is always there. It's just about building it up in such a way that it houses all the tools you have, everything. You can go to it as a sanctuary, you can go to it as a safe haven, you can put things in your fortress that mean something to you. You don't necessarily need to be using them or seeing them every day of your life. This could be relationships. It could be about a person who, a person that's close to you in life, but you only speak to them once a blue moon.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't mean you've forgotten about them or yourself. It could be you will write a book, Pat. I have no doubt about that. But
Maybe
when
you'll
you
help
are,
me.
I'd love
Maybe
to.
you'll help
Do
me,
you know what?
because
I
this
would
is the way.
absolutely love to.
This is because really the way you captured the power of this journey for me, and it's still about goddesses. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's about goddesses in the way we live our lives. And I was so
Absolutely.
struck by, I mean, we could do a 2-hour show because, and I love the order that you put this in. The reason I
Thank
had
you.
to ask you about the fortresses is because it comes before the picking your battles
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah. And it
Right?
has to. It has
Yeah.
to, because how can you go to battle when you don't know what the hell you're fighting for, or where you are, or where you stand? You're ungrounded, right? Emotionally, physically,
And you don't feel
spiritually.
safe.
No, you've got nowhere to turn to. What are you fighting for in this battle of yours? If there's nothing to preserve in the best possible way, and that's your own self,
Mhm.
right? That's your I guess what it all boils down to with this book is there is so much that tears people down day in, day out.
Mhm.
It's a reminder to say you can create a much better world or experience of the world for yourself.
Mhm.
You've got that power. Everything is energy. That's it.
Yeah.
Finito. And it's how it manifests itself.
Yeah.
Right.
And you bring us full circle, I think, in the part of the book where, everything that had come before prepares us for the conversation you have about engaging with the winds of change. Because you cannot engage with the winds of change if you haven't really gone through, the previous ideas.
No, and you're touching on the fact every one of these chapters has multiple exercises to do as well, which are predominantly earth-centered exercises for earth medicine exercises. So they connect us as much as I can, and as much as I hope people can do, go out in nature and do these things. You need to connect with the elements. You need to hear and feel nature around you and see it around you, and the earth itself will energize you too.
You're so right about that. One of the things I do with the people I coach is I ask them to go find a stick.
Yeah.
And they cannot find it. They cannot bring the stick. They cannot find the stick in less than 7 days. They have to take 7 days to find the stick.
Yep. Fantastic.
Right. And the reason I do that is that because the early way out would be to find any stick, but that's not really the exercise, is it?
No,
it isn't.
And you want people to be more discerning as well in life.
More discerning. And to really look at what they're looking at, and everybody that does that, when they come back, they have the story that is more like the born again creator energy. They see things in a stick that they found, and of course they can't. They have to find it on the ground or someplace. I have had some people travel to other states to find their stick. There's no rules. But I want to ask you this last question. All of this to me had an end game, and I didn't know it had an end game till I got to the end. Because we have to be those born again creators, don't we?
Absolutely.
More than once in life. We have to know.
Multiple times.
Right. Yeah. Somebody asked me how I got the snake as one of my totems.
Nice.
And
that's a beautiful totem animal to have, Pat.
It is. And I said, well, it's simple. When you're in the desert and you're on a vision quest and you keep finding snake skin that has been shed, and you keep bringing it back to your mentor, shaman, what do you think she's going to say? But that's what I'm seeing is you give us a way and help us to shed things so that new growth can come. I wanted to ask you, what is your greatest wish for people reading this book? I know what I got out of it. And by the way, I have to go back and read again. There's way too much. And some of the exercises I have to go back.
Oh, they take a little bit of time.
Yeah. But I know you have a vision for it.
I want people to have a greater sense of themselves and to love themselves more for their life experience. So actually they bring love into everything that they're doing. And I don't mean that in an airy, fairy, huggy, kumbaya type of way. I mean in the sense of appreciating life itself, because it is fleeting. And my personal message would be for people not to be afraid to live who they truly know themselves to be. And that's male and female alike. And
then your website again, because you've got other things going on as well.
It's www.solarisfoundation.com. You can also find me at www.solarisltd.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everything. And thank everybody. I want to hold the book up here again. And please, it's available everywhere. It is really a journey that you'll go on. There's so many things we didn't really talk about, but again, you'll be able to figure those out for yourselves. And thank you for honoring so many different goddess energies in this book.
Yeah,
it really was for me just an uplifting and learning experience to learn about these other goddesses and this other energy that we often forget about or don't know. And thank you for setting the record straight on Pandora.
No problem. Thank you, Pat, so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I apologize.
No, it's all right. All right. If in the future you do want to do anything with regards to a book for yourself, please, I'm here for you. Seriously.
I'm going to call you. I will take you up on that. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, William.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.